Uncensored, unregular radio.
Hey, it's two hotheads where activism happens. Unregularradio.com. Diane, are you still there? You got us on the speakerphone, right?
Oh, I'm still here.
All right, awesome. We're doing a big show this week, and on the phone, as you just heard, we have the one and only Maine State Rep, several-time guest on our show, Diane Russell, who just put up the marijuana legalization bill of the state of Maine to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Let's hear it for her.
Yeah.
More support than ever, too. Like, Diane, tell us about this press conference and what just happened.
It was pretty explosive, actually, in a good way. So there were so many people that were asking, we'd like to see the press conference, we'd like to be able to see it, but we don't live in Maine, or we can't get to it, and we do live in Maine. So I had this idea, well, what if we did a live stream? But then I had to go through and figure out how to do that, because that was, I've never done that before. So it turns out there's an app for that on my iPad. So, yeah, there really is an app for that. And so we made sure that folks knew about it, and friend Eric from Normal did some outreach through social media to get it out there and put it up on Reddit that this was going to happen. And at some point, there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 430 people watching at any given point, and then I think there were mixed results on how many total watched, but it looks like 650 people watched, and the number of folks that have watched the YouTube version of it is significantly higher than that. I mean, there's just been such feedback, and so we get done the press conference, which was pretty good, actually. It was solid. I mean, we have, folks from the ACLU of Maine.
Yeah.
This is not like...
I'm sorry interrupting. I'm sorry. Yes. The press conference was awesome, Diane. You kicking ass. Like, seriously, that was just like the people that you had there. Wow. I wish we could do the same in Massachusetts,
All in good time.
It's not there yet. I mean, you guys had a huge victory in November. Let's just give some props to that.
I know, but our politicians, though, aren't like you. It's like you can see that you got some people on your side now. It's you're moving it.
Well, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we have activists out in the community that are pushing that issue. I mean, look what happened on Reddit. I've been a member of Reddit for almost 2 years now, and just sort of a quiet member for the most part. I did an AMA, an Ask Me Anything a couple years ago. And so Eric from Normal posted a link. So we get out of the press conference, and we're already beaming because all these people were watching, right? Which we didn't expect. It was great. I was terrified that the audio wouldn't be working, and the audio was fine.
Yes.
The video was a little sketchy because it was a little grainy, but that was fine. So we get back up to our committee room where we had sort of started as our headquarters for the day. And all of a sudden, David Boyer, who works for the Marijuana Policy Project, a friend of his had come with us, and he was checking out Reddit on his phone. He's like, you're off the charts on Reddit right now. And I was like, really? So we looked, and sure enough, so I went in, and I posted a quick little note saying, hey, thanks, everyone. And then I drove home a couple hours later, and folks were really responding well to that, so I started responding and commenting in and engaging with people, because that's what I do. You know me, I like to talk with people. So that's what I was doing. And then there was a second thread that got posted that said, Representative Russell pops in on a Reddit column about her, about Representative Russell. So then there's a second thread that goes, and it made it to the front page of Reddit, and it was there for a good 24 or 36 hours. And so then it really exploded, and they kept asking for an AMA, and I was like, well, I'm kind of doing one. So it was a lot of fun, to get to hear from folks from around the country who were jazzed. And for those that don't really follow Reddit, Reddit's a really big deal, and they actually were almost single-handedly shut down SOPA last summer, which was great. That was set to go through Congress without any debate, and they managed to flood all the states. All the U.S. senators' offices, and they shut it down. It was pretty brilliant, and they've taken a leading role on making sure that the internet continues to sit day accessible to the rest of us, to all of us that don't necessarily have all the big buco bucks that all the big lobbyists do. So they're a really powerful force, and they were just really great, and it was inspiring. And I've been getting phone calls from people all across the state saying, hey, I don't smoke pot, but I really appreciate what you're doing. This is a waste of resources. I've had folks that have called with concerns about what I'm doing, and when I talked them through it, they understood better about why where I was coming down on it, and so it's just been a really constructive conversation. And by and large, I'd say 98% of the feedback has been fantastic. All the major news outlets in Maine covered this, and they almost all of them put polls up. The lowest poll was at like 58%, those little online polls. One of them was around 60%, and one of them, the Bangor Daily News, which is the largest daily in the state, was up around 80% in support. And usually the comment section is filled with, people that constantly are just finding any excuse to lambaste politicians. And all the comments were like, wait a minute, there's something intelligent coming out of Augusta, or, wow, that's a great idea. I mean, it was the reverse of what you would expect. So it's been remarkably positive. There was one state senator that I had talked to last week, and I said, do you want to co-sponsor the bill? You'd be perfect to do that. And he's like, yeah, I don't really know. My district might not like it. And I was like, you're in a rural district. Where do you think they grow this stuff? Of course they're going to like it. So
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, we were going back and forth on Facebook today, and he was like, I'm hearing from all sorts of people that I should support your bill. I'm like, I told you.
Yeah.
I told you. It's coming out in force. People are really having to confront the issue. And, part of it is that we worked so hard to get it up and running in the first place 2 years ago. We laid a really strong foundation.
Yes.
It's been great to have Eric from Normal really pounding the pavement in terms of the social media and using his networks. And, big shout out to the Marijuana Policy Project. They hired someone, David Boyer in Maine, and you'll appreciate this, Mike. David and a colleague of his led the fight in the GOP to get the convention, to get the Ron Paul seated at the convention, and get those delegates. And so he was at the heart of the organizing that led to the whole disruption at the Maine State Convention and at the National Convention.
I saw that. Yeah, that was
diehard libertarian.
Wow.
Yep. As far as your other peers, though, like how are the other peers, like legislators, responding to this? Do you feel like there's just going to be enough public pressure just to push it through, or do you think that there's actually some strong opposition from other legislators?
There's a handful of legislators that are categorically opposed to it, and I can't really help that. They have their reasons for it, and they just can't get there, and I respect that. But, I've had some folks that are remarkably opposed to it who I have been able to, once, I've sat down and had a 10, 20-minute conversation with them and walked them through what the bill does and how it operates, and that this bill would go to the people for ratification through a referendum. Most folks are coming back going, oh, that makes more sense. So, even some of the folks that have been opposed have come back to sort of a neutral place, and folks that have been in a neutral place have been moving toward a more positive place. And we have already blown the co-sponsors out of the water. We're allowed to have 9 other co-sponsors in addition to me, and we already have those folks locked down, and we have a question of whether we're going to have to ask the presiding officers for permission to open the jacket up so that we can have unlimited co-sponsors, because there's been such support.
Awesome.
This still is going to be an uphill battle. But again, it really comes down to, are people reaching out to their lawmakers? And, I got to tell you, I'm hearing from lawmakers all the time now. I'm hearing from your constituents. And they say I'm hearing from my constituents about your bill. And it's just been a remarkable experience. And I think this is one of those places where when the people step up and they speak, and they speak truth to power, at some point politicians are going to listen.
Yep, that's awesome. That's super awesome. So where does it go now? What's next? Does it go to a committee, or what happens now?
All right, well, so the bill, we're still waiting for the bill to come back from revisers. We've been waiting for it for a little while because they're a little backed up. So we wanted to still kick the ball off and get the ball rolling, so to speak. So we're waiting for that to come back, and then we'll work on getting co-sponsors for the bill officially signed on, and then from there we go to committee. We're going to have the criminal justice committee look at it, and hopefully then we go to a floor vote, and we're going to see what happens. Again, this has a referendum attached to it, so why don't we give the people the right to vote on whether they want to do this or not? I think it's essential that we, as lawmakers, don't get in the way of that. But my bill would set up a regulatory infrastructure that balances the interests of everybody, and then sends it to the people for ratification. So that's the debate we're having. It's the conversation we're having. Bill Nemetz from the Portland Press Herald came out yesterday in a op-ed. He does columns a couple times a week. He basically said this is a great idea. It's an idea whose time has come. He went on a very conservative radio station yesterday morning to do an interview, and he actually was one of the best people to advocate for this. He just talked off the cuff about how practical it was. And both radio show hosts, there was a left and a right radio show host, they were both like, "Oh yeah, we're totally for this. We support this." So the question is the inevitability going to be there? Are people going to feel like it's inevitable, or are they going to feel like it's controversial? And our job is to make sure that people understand that the wave is coming, and it's inevitable, and it's okay to do it.
Awesome.
So what can I do? Like, what can we do from here in Massachusetts to support you? Like, what can people do from around the country to support you?
That's a really great question. One, go to my website, Diane M. as in Marie, DianeMRussell.com. Sign up for my email newsletter and put it in there that you support marijuana legalization, because we can keep folks in the loop as to what we're doing as the process continues. But really, if you have friends in Maine at this point, call them and have them call their legislators. They have both a House rep and a senator, right? So have them reach out to their lawmakers and say, this makes sense. There's an email form, Mike, you can share it. There's one from Normal, there's one from MPP. Both of them are wicked easy for Maine viewers to get on and send out an email. It goes to both your House member and your Senate member, and that helps. So it's really about spreading the word, keeping the momentum going. If people blog, keep blogging about it. My clout score went up 2 points in the last 48 hours.
Hey,
and it has not, seriously,
we could tell.
Months.
We saw
that.
that.
It's a solid 67. It is now at 69.
Oh, you're moving up. I think you just passed me.
I'm like, why don't you have Reddit on here? Why can't I connect my Reddit account? I'll have it like a 75.
I know, you'd be at like a 9, yeah.
Yeah, just keep, and when you say something, share it. Share it on Reddit. Share it on Facebook, and just keep folks knowing what's going on.
You're officially speeding now. You're over 65.
I'm going to get it on Reddit right now.
Unbelievable. So
I'll be in criminal territory soon if I get cross somebody.
But Diane, I actually didn't introduce you to my co-host. This is my Heather's taking a leave from the show. We now have Frank Capone.
Hello.
He's an activist,
hey!
and he's been asking you questions. I don't know how I missed that. We're running late on time.
I didn't announce myself either.
Yeah, but he's a good. You're gonna like Frank a lot. You think you guys have seen each other around as it is, but another thing that we're both interested in is the banking, and I saw it supported another bill that came up about having a public state of Maine bank. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us about that, how that would work, why you would support it, why people should support it, if it could go anywhere?
Yeah, this is another idea whose time has come, but people need to be educated on it first. So the bank, so North Dakota has a state public bank, and all their finances run through that bank. And essentially, when a state collects tax revenue, it has to sit somewhere, right? So where is it sitting? And right now, a good portion of that is sitting on Wall Street. And what this does is to take that back into the state-owned public bank, and instead of leveraging that money like Wall Street investors do, on big loans or Chinese credit cards or any other number of financial interests that they use that deposit to leverage against. Instead, we would be doing that right here on Main Street, literally in Maine, on Main Street. And so the deposits would be leveraged in a way that would allow local businesses to get better access to capital through partnership loans that we would do with other local banks. You know, North Dakota has the highest percent of community banks per capita. And that's because instead of getting bought up by the big banks, they work with the Bank of North Dakota to make sure that they stay small. Furthermore, they have the lowest unemployment rate, or close to it, in the country. They did not see the recession. And in fact, folks will say, well, that's because they have oil. But all the surrounding states have oil, too, and they took a real hit during the recession. If you look at, there's a number of countries, they call them the BRIC countries. It's Brazil, Russia, India, and China, I think. Every one of those countries, they run on a public banking system, and not one of them saw a recession, even though the global economy took a pretty solid hit. Yeah. So I think at this point, what we're looking at is how do we bring our dollars home? How do we make sure that our dollars are invested in a way that we want them to be invested? I don't think most people know where their taxes actually sit. We sort of picture Fort Knox, and Fort Knox is archaic. So we're doing that proposal. We're calling it the Maine Street Bank. Maine is spelled like M-A-I-N-E. You guys would probably want to do M-A-I-N. But it's a pretty big idea, and I think it's pretty transformative. And what's interesting is, the marijuana legislation has been really groundbreaking for me because it's sort of forged trust and relationships with people that I normally wouldn't necessarily talk policy with.
Exactly.
And David Boyer is a great example of that. He's such an up and comer in the conservative community. Very smart, very sweet. And of course, he doesn't always get along with everybody because he's an upstart. But he's trying to make a difference. He's
I like
trying to be heard.
upstarts.
He's young. He's 24.
We like upstarts.
What?
We like upstarts.
Yeah, you guys should have him on.
Yeah.
But we talked about the state bank bill, and at first he was like, absolutely not. And then I walked him through and why he should consider supporting it. And a lot of the libertarians are probably going to get behind this bill as a direct result. And he asked me, can you put in the bill a requirement that it be backed by either gold or silver? And I said, well, I'll put it in, and the language technically says where possible, because I can't necessarily dictate that it always do that, and that's just not practically an opportunity. It's not practicable in real life to always have that way, so I put it where possible, and he's like, okay, we can get behind that. So now he has a bill out there that really puts into perspective not just how do we bring our dollars home, but the idea and start the conversation about what it means to have our dollars backed against oil and not backed against gold and silver like it has been for the first couple of centuries.
Yeah, so backed by the Federal Reserve at this point. They're just buying their own notes. We used to sell our notes to the Chinese and Saudi Arabia. Now our notes are just being bought by the Federal Reserve. That's what's been happening. I mean, that's where we're at, and people don't seem to realize it. Like Iceland, that's what we should be doing. Like, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen here, Diane. And I just love that idea. We need to make these private banks public and to have the states have their own banks. That's a great idea. Nebraska is doing it. It's working. Why aren't
Nevada. I'm sorry, North Dakota.
North Dakota, yeah. Why isn't everyone else doing it? I mean, we have 49 other states and territories. They should all be doing it.
So I'm curious as to if this is Frank. If what the backing would be for the loans and things like that, or what the collateral would be. If not gold and silver, then is it hydroelectric power or wind or some sort of natural resource?
Okay, it's a fair question. So most of the sadly you can operate a bank on a computer essentially these days.
Well, that's what's going on now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of speaking a little off the cuff. It's not obviously true in actual practice, but metaphorically speaking, you can kind of do that. So you don't you necessarily need all of that, which is part of the reason why I thought it was a good idea to include it. But the way the Bank of North Dakota works is they actually are a DBA of the state. They do business as So North Dakota does business as the Bank of North Dakota. So the Bank of North Dakota acts as the Treasury and essentially allows, all the money goes through there. But the other side of that is because they do it that way, there is all the assets that they own, all the buildings, all the capital investments that they have, that actually is part of the collateral. So you can also have money backed up, essentially, or I believe that you can have money backed up through real estate and real estate assets. So all the real estate assets that the state has, that also then becomes capital investment that backs up the bank. So I just think it's a much smarter way to do it. You're responding to local needs. There's this great example in North Dakota where there was this massive flood. They hadn't seen anything like it in ages. And whereas most places you wait for FEMA to come in and it's just a long disaster process, recovery process, the Bank of North Dakota went in and financed the reconstruction. Worked with, there was still FEMA, there was still all the disaster recovery stuff going on, but because they were able to go in directly and negotiate financing for these business owners, they were able to get that town back on its feet in a matter of a year and a half or so, as opposed to, look at what's happening in Louisiana. We still haven't really recovered, and look what the wake of Sandy. I mean, Staten Island, a big shout out to them.
Yeah.
Man.
It's going to be bad for, long time. And it's like this whole thing about the public state banks, really what they are is what you said. They have the assets and then they can loan against them, and they can fund housing. They can do so many things for the community and give them a way of getting money and loans outside of the Federal Reserve System. They're separate fiefdoms, Garrett.
Yeah.
That the public own, that the public get a benefit from. It's like, it's like everyone's part of Harvard. If you're part of Harvard, you're part of the endowment. This is the state endowment. Go.
There's two really important things that I think were just stated here. Backing your assets in land. That is how, Jackson paid off the banks. Andrew Jackson paid off the central banks and actually got this country out of debt.
I know.
As the only president to ever do that was by selling off land as an asset. And that's, that's actual value right there is in your land. If it's gold, if it's whatever. The other important thing really is this is awesome because it breaks the centralization of money power that's happening on Wall Street. And that's how they have this country in a chokehold. If a state government can't act on its own without getting a loan from a bank, they're powerless. This is an awesome idea.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Well, and to that end, across the country, the aggregate cost of public works projects of 40% on average goes to interest rates.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much more infrastructure we could build out?
I know, and how many jobs,
we were not sending 40% of our interest to Wall Street, and that's, and then so when we bond, every time a state bonds, that has interest, that debt service is important. So just being able to reduce our debt aspect, the debt aspect, is a huge shift. But I'll tell you, the banks do not like this, especially the big banks.
Yeah, the big private banks, the cartel.
Yeah, because the big banks really don't like it because, if one state starts doing this and starts removing the Treasury, that's a massive deposit that they count on in order to leverage against. That's how they make their money. So if one state starts, then the next state starts. We start moving toward a public banking system. It really does take the handcuffs off. And it breaks that relationship, that dependency that we currently have with Wall Street.
Once you get this public banking system in place in Maine, what would you ever consider, having a Maine currency?
I don't think we would need to. I understand where you go on that. I don't actually support having localized currencies because I just think that it's it creates
competition.
No. I mean, if I go to Massachusetts, then I have to change my currency every time, and I may win some or may lose some.
No, the way it'd be
potentially true.
Let it be open though. Like let it, like you can use it either place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite happy having very consistent currency across the country. I think that's a small. I understand why you want to do that, and I get it. I just think that there are better ways to get to making sure that our money is spent wisely and that our money is backed appropriately. Our money is not just backed by the Fed. Our money is actually in petrodollars now, and so it's backed on oil. So you wonder why we go to war all the time over oil. It's not just because we're oil dependent. It's because our entire economy is based on petroleum. Oil replaced gold, essentially.
Well, I was thinking of it from the standpoint of like not having to pay, interest on the notes. You know what I mean? Because the Federal Reserve does print those notes, and then they're applying interest, but they're not printing that interest. So if you had,
state could do it without that interest.
Exactly, and so that,
and especially to fund community projects, like they could easily. Like it's a creative financing for good things. It's a way to fund schools.
Well, I don't mind 5% interest, but I mind 40%.
I mind any interest. I mean, really. I mean,
the state could actually do loans at zero interest if they for certain projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it wouldn't cost the state anything.
And we would be doing it through a
state bank
partnership.
Yeah,
we would be doing it through banks. I mean, North Dakota Bank does not give out loans. You can't walk in off the street and ask for a loan. You still do it through your local community bank.
Yeah, exactly. They might get
it's a partnership loan.
Diane, we appreciate you coming on today. We've covered so much good stuff, and we're so happy.
We do.
Yeah. The marijuana legalization bill. Are we calling this legalization like alcohol? Is that what you're referring it to as?
Yeah, it's actually tax and regulate technically, but we're regulating it like alcohol. Yeah.
There's a lot of there's people in this movement who are upset because they don't like that. There's certain people, that are. How do I say this? They think it should be repeal of prohibition, and that it should have never happened, and that we shouldn't talk about taxation or regulation, and that we should just get.
I know. Believe me.
What is your one final response to them? Because we have to get that in. Because if we don't, they're all going to yell at me and say I'm a traitor.
Of course they are.
Because I love you.
Do you want it legal or not?
Exactly.
That's the question I have to ask.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Because, I can grow basil. That's fine. You can. In my bill, you can grow up to 6 plants without being charged any interest, any tax, or anything. But do you want it legal or not? If you want to continue to, go for perfection, that's your prerogative. I'm going for progress. I'm going to go make sure that we are not putting people in jail.
Wow, that's what we need to hear. And that's what we're doing. Thank you, Diane. Thanks for calling in again today.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Talk to you again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. That was awesome.
That was beyond awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't even that whole banks thing. I didn't even see coming.
Yeah.
We may have some friends in Maine. We can maybe point their direction.
And I want to talk.
Certainly.
Well, we should have brought up to Diane. I want to do a hemp bank. A bank backed by hemp,
right?
Well, that essentially be backed off the land that the hemp's being grown out of.
Yeah.
It's a very logical
and hemp
thing.
Products. You could have all kinds of stuff with hemp. Oh my God!
It's your actual tangible resource. The land.
I could do I would get hemp dollars for doing my consultations, which I could use to buy. Real hemp products.
Real hemp.
You know what I mean?
But that's true.
It's
by hemp products, you mean like rope, linens, like fuels,
whatever
foods.
I wanted. Cannibals, consumables, smokables,
but those are cannabis
eatables.
Because hemp is not cannabis, right?
Everything, the whole hemp plant. No, hemp is cannabis.
But it's such a low.
Just because of the politics stuff, hemp is cannabis.
Well, you can't get high from hemp. You would have to.
Well, you're talking about different types of hemp.
But that's how they fought hemp in the first
they've
place.
tried the modern world now, and some of the activists have tried to turn in the word hemp into consumable hemp, which is like THC free, which is that what is that?
Sort of eating rope.
Yeah, there's different types of hemp and the way you use it and stuff, but truly, hemp is cannabis.
It is, but
it always has been and it always will be.
But part of how they got rid of hemp was that they married it so closely into the psychoactive flowers that come on cannabis, like the higher concentrations.
Yeah.
Well, and because it looked the same and everything, and it was easier to just pull apart, but but no, I mean, if we did grow hemp, you know what I mean, like, and that's like the next step for me. I mean, is hemp, like, why isn't hemp legal? Like, it's not legal to grow hemp. Why?
But you can
import
it.
It would
you
be
can
like,
import it though. That's the weird thing.
Yeah, you can import
on that
it,
That's the weird
but
one.
like, it would be a huge cash crop for Massachusetts and for this country. You know what I mean?
I know.
It really would. I mean,
but not as good as
$1 billion industry.
Not as good as just legalizing marijuana though.
No, both.
Legalizing marijuana.
Both.
Repeal prohibition, damn you.
Yeah,
if we legalize marijuana, does that mean that hemp's legal, or is hemp still illegal?
No, it's legal.
How do we?
Because it's THC. That's what's outlawed.
How do we know?
No, dude.
I bet you.
Dude,
I bet you. I don't know.
No, dude.
We should ask her that on the phone. Does that legalize hemp as well?
That is like the beauty of the unintended consequence up in places like, I don't think people have realized that yet. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm missing something. We need to research that. But isn't that it probably for Washington, Colorado? Like, who's going to actually get busted for growing hemp up there? If some farmers decide to grow hemp, do you think they're actually going to get bust them after that law passed?
I don't know. I mean, they did it in North Dakota.
On the amount.
They did?
Yeah,
but there was no law passed. North Dakota's fucking not Oregon and Washington.
Are there limits to how much, like, how many plants they can grow themselves, or?
I don't know.
Where it'll bite you.
We should find out what's going on out there. I mean, there's been all this talk about hemp. Are there actually people going up there growing hemp yet? I don't know. Maybe it takes some time. Maybe it's not the right place to grow hemp.
We should.
I don't know.
Everywhere's the right place.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. What am I talking about? Washington State probably has a lot of. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm an idiot. Oregon? Oh my god! Right?
So
is that what? Again, Oregon's like fucking green USA.
Yeah. We need to go and visit these places, and I think we should maybe put together a Mike Cann bus tour.
Oh yeah, that might be next.
Yep.
If you want to sponsor it,
yeah.
And you don't freak me out, I might go on a tour with you. If you want to call in, that's probably what would be much better. 617-606-3700.